And so it all began. 16 divers from around the U.S. trying to get to the Atlantis Resort at Dumaguete. Jesse from the sands of Cape May. Carl from the Cincinnati Tundra. And the other 14 strung in and around the Houston Badlands. So we ended up in Manila, and I think that you had a little jaunt. Not a lot of the others did.
Sure, there were several of us that reached Manila a few days early. I wanted to go back to see the American Cemetery there in Manila. It is the largest U.S. American cemetery overseas. And I'd seen it before, and it just really touched my heart since I volunteered with veterans here in Houston. So the one thing that really was interesting to me, when we got there, the cemetery really wasn't that big. There were only 17,100 graves there. But as we took the tour, we walked around, and there were many, many 12-foot tall granite pieces with all of these names etched on it. And I asked our tour guide, I said, well, what's the deal with all the names? And she said, those are all the missing, and they total over 36,000 names. And that's what got to me, because I thought all of these American heroes went away to fight, and they never came home. And people lost their moms, their dads, their brothers, their uncles, cousins, and they never knew what happened to them. And that was just very, very touching. Also, when we were in Manila, we stayed near a really awesome mall. We walked over there several times. We had several of our meals there. The group got together, and we had some drinks there one night. Those were good drinks. And at one point, I looked over to Dennis, and he was hot. He was steaming hot.
No, my drink was steaming hot.
Well, whatever. I said Dennis. So anyway, we had a great time there. And then our group met later on, and we went to, I believe the name is Barbara's. We went to this restaurant that Craig Beasley had put together for us. And it was really great. We met as a group, and it was buffet style. But what was really interesting about the dinner was they had dancing and entertainment afterwards, and that was a lot of fun. And of course, Brian got in on the entertainment, and he danced with the lummy sticks. And we all ended up having a picture with the group, and we had a great time. And it was a wonderful way to start off the trip, because I believe the next morning then we headed out for the resort.
I think that you, on the boat, you had a little bit of additional problems, right?
Always have additional problems, whether it be with computers or with critters biting me or attacking me. A year or so ago, several from our group went on the Bilikiki in the Solomon Islands, and they had told Carl Berkman and myself about how to kill the crown of thorns, because the crown of thorns is very invasive, and there are no natural predators. So they were telling us, take your lobster stick or your muck stick and take it and just stab them in the middle. And so that's what we did. and they would open up, and then the fish would come and they would eat, the crown of thorns. So we felt pretty good about ourselves. So we were diving there in the Philippines, and the second or third day, it's like, ooh, there's a crown of thorns again. And we both looked at each other, and we got our sticks out, and we got ready. We were going to do some damage. So we stuck. Well, one of them got me right on this knuckle right here. And I tell you, it took almost 6 months for that to heal, and I still have some swelling there. So, lesson well learned. Next time, take a much larger muck stick.
Well, one thing that I've learned about you, Jan, is that you're a real trooper. You go partying and diving even when you're the walking wounded.
Well, hey, I paid for it. I'm going to get my money's worth.
and you're a pretty good roommate.
Oh, yes, and you are too. Very good roomie, Dennis.
Jesse, I know that one of the places that you went to that I didn't go to was the land tour on Bohol.
Well, the land tour on Bohol was a big surprise for me on the trip. It involved a bus ride over to a tarsier sanctuary. Unexpected surprise on the trip. These animals are the smallest animals in the whole family of primates. And they date back to 45 million years ago. And the interesting thing, well, one of the interesting things about these, they don't like noise. And so before the group of us with a tour guide, you're given strict instructions to not make any noise, because the least bit of noise scares them. We did about a 30-minute hike and tour and saw numerous, at least a half a dozen or so of these tiny little primates called tarsiers. The way that they position themselves in the trees is, number one, not easy to spot. Number two, you can't get real close in a good position for photography. So what the tour guide does is he just says, hey, everybody get your iPhones out. And as we go up, because they would only take like 2 at a time up to close to see one, everybody else stood back, and then 2 more, and then 2 more, and then 2 more. And he'd take your iPhone and he would take the picture and then hand it back to you. And guess what? The guy was a good photographer. And the couple of photos that I've shared for this presentation were taken by the guide, not by me.
You also went on that same trip, you went into the cavern.
There's a cavern that you can walk into. You go down some steps and then underground, and then it opens up, and there's a small pond at the bottom of this cavern, and you can walk around the body of water and you can swim. And when everybody was offered the option if they wanted to swim, and Christine, they brought their bathing suits and a towel, and they went in for a swim. And so we took a few pictures in that cavern. And it was cool. There's stalactites, stalagmites.
You also told me that there was one overriding reason you came on this trip.
Well, actually, I'll give you a second reason. The overriding reason was that I wanted to photograph a thresher shark. I've never been in all my travels in the 50 years I've been diving. I have never been in the water with a thresher shark, never seen a thresher shark. And this was a guaranteed thresher shark trip. And that's why I signed up for it. And, I'm really happy. I was also very happy to be on this trip because I had no responsibility on this trip. After more than 30 years of leading trips, and I led over 30 trips over that course of 30 years, I had no responsibilities. So I was able to just relax and interact with everybody and share stories and just have a fun time with no responsibilities. And that was very nice. We had a really wonderful group of people and a number of people I hadn't been on trips with before. And so it's always nice to be able to spend time with people and share stories and get to know people better. That was all wonderful. And then the coral reefs there, of course, were spectacular. And, you know, it's an area that has highly productive for underwater photography. You know, you go in the water on a dive and you're not waiting very long before your finger's on the shutter and you're clicking. And it's that kind of a place. And just a whole array of wonderful Pacific Reef marine life. You know, the laundry list is long of all the different critters we saw, from, you know, seahorses and, you know, frogfish, and just a whole long list of different critters that we had to photograph and enjoy.
This is your first time across the big pond, I think, right?
Yes, this is it.
We get to Dumaguete, and we're rolling in there.
And we're going down these little side streets, and I'm just kind of, you know, looking at the infrastructure and everything. And there's the little shops, and we turn between two of the little shops, and we go down this dirt road, and there's just little houses on each side, and there's chickens and dogs and children, and we're weaving through these houses, and we wind up, there's a little guard gate with a guard there, and we pull into this dirt circle drive, and that's where we're unloading our bags. And it's like, you know, I'm used to the times I've been out of country, these big resorts, and I'm like, well, this is interesting. And they unload our bags and start taking them to their respective places, and we start walking through there, and really it's just, you know, jungles and this huge tree in the courtyard and all these plants. And then as we're walking through there, you start seeing the little cabanas, and then it kind of opens up into the ocean and the open air dining, and all of the people already knew our names. All of the staff knew our names, and I was really impressed. Even the gardener knew everybody's names. So whenever we took and got on went for the briefing in the conference room, all of our pictures are on the wall with our names underneath it. They had literally studied our pictures and our names, and I thought that was really neat and really personal. And all of the staff was awesome.
It really was. The food was good.
The food was awesome. The dive masters, I mean, they were top notch. I mean, impressive on the land side and the boat side.
Everybody but the pig enjoyed it.
Yes, everybody but the pig. The last night on the resort, they roasted a pig for us. Actually dug out in the sand and built a fire and put up corrugated metal to block the one side, and roasted a whole pig for us, and we feasted on the pig. And then what was left of the pig wound up on the boat with us for many of the meals. And the kitchen was small. There wasn't a whole lot they just produced an awful lot of really good food for such a teeny tiny kitchen. We get on the boat, and the first thing they tell us is no shoes, inside or out. And I'm a barefoot kind of guy, so I was like, yes, this is awesome. So we get down into our berth, and I'm rooming with Jay, because we roomed at the resort, and they had assigned him the upper bunk. And I looked at his face, and I could see that he was looking at that upper bunk, and Jay's a lot taller than I am. And I was like, I got it, Jay. I'll take the upper bunk. And he's like, no, it's all good. They gave me the upper. And I said, Jay, we're going to have to fold you up like a book of matches to stick you up in there. I said, I'll be all right. And he was just so relieved and so happy that he wasn't going to have to climb up in that bunk.
Yeah, they had an impressive crew there as well. The dive masters really took care of us.
Yes, they went out of their way. Eric literally had surgery on his foot, and he would still dive with us. And I told him, man, you don't have to do that. We're good. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it as much as I can. And literally some of the dives, I could tell where he was because he had one fin on.
But yeah, so I show up with two booties, both of them on the left foot. And so I wear it, I guess maybe about 4 days. By that time, my big toe is just throbbing. I can't wear another bootie. And one of the dive masters, I can't remember his name right now, he said, here, and gave me his. And I used it from that point on.
One of the dives, in that part of the sanctuary, you have to have a local guide. And Robert come on board. And so Robert's told us, he said, on this particular dive, it's an afternoon dive, and so we might see a tiger shark. And I was like, yes, that would be so cool.
What I remember about the tiger shark, was it was kind of it was like a late afternoon dive. And I really enjoyed that dive, just kind of going around. But then that big shark came along. And I'm glad everybody was excited, but it looked to me like he or she was in feeding mode. And I just got pretty uncomfortable pretty quickly. And my camera died, so then I was ready to end the dive anyway. But anyway, I think I got one picture of it. And
He went down there around the coral head.
yeah,
Eating.
he or she was going under coral looking for fish, and there weren't many fish, at least not big fish, except for us. And I got pretty uncomfortable, and I went over and asked the dive master. I said, look, man, I'm going up. So we all kind of got together and went up as a group, and you could see it was still kind of poking around trying to look for fish, and it got one, and it shook it all up. And while it was eating it, we were doing our safety stop, and a fish gut kind of floated up from where the shark was eating, a big chunk about the size of a baseball or softball, and it just floated right between our group, and I watched it float off. My camera was dead. I'm like, I would really like to get a picture of that fish gut. And then we all got on the boat, and apparently when the last diver was getting on, the last diver had gotten on, and the dive master was pulling up the tank, and it came and nipped at the boot on the cylinder.
Martin, I was looking at your video clips, and you have the best video of the tiger shark of anybody. And that was one of the big things that everybody seemed to focus on that dive.
Oh yeah, that was really something. The tiger shark. I think that's the one thing everybody talked about that was on that dive. It was like the last dive of the day. Toward the end of the dive, it was started kind of getting dusky. So we had one more dive to do. We're swimming along, not seeing a whole lot. All of a sudden, there's this big tiger shark, and he just comes swimming straight at me. I mean, just straight to my camera. And oh wow, I start snapping away. And he came and he swerved just at the last second to keep from hitting the camera. He swerved over my shoulder. And I thought, well, that was pretty close. But then my dive buddy later told me he actually had to push the shark off of him with his camera. It was toward the end of the dive. He looked like he was looking for something to eat, but I don't know if people have been feeding him or he was trying to eat us or whatever. I have no idea.
You were the last one on the boat, right?
I was the last one, yeah. So I was snapping away, and so finally did my safety stop. And as you could look down, you could see him circling around below us. And he was after something, and he got some big white thing in his mouth. I don't know if it was a fish or some trash or whatever. And he was just slinging it around back and forth and going to town on whatever that was. So that made people think that he was really hungry. And then when I was trying to get on the boat, I reached down, put my face in the water to get my fin unclipped. And as I did that, he swam right below my fin. I mean, he was right under me. If I'd moved my leg a little bit, I would have kicked him. And then as I got in the panga, everybody was talking, oh, wow, did you see the shark? Did you see the shark? And this big fin was just up, circling slowly around the panga. So he was right there waiting for somebody to fall in or whatever, I don't know.
So the other big sharks, I know that you were all there with the rest of us when we were doing the whale sharks.
Yes. I really liked the whale sharks. I didn't think it was going to be that big a deal because I had snorkeled with whale sharks before, and you know that was kind of you jump in the water, they swim by, you get out, you wait for the next one, you jump in the water, they swim by. And I kind of thought this would be something similar, but it was totally different for me. I had never actually been diving with the whale sharks, and that was really a treat because you can just jump in and they are right there. You can swim up to anyone that you want. You can get as close as you dare, but it's amazing how powerful yet graceful they are. You know, it's just amazing, and they're just slow and easy, and their tails are going. But I hear all kinds of stories about don't let the tail get near you or whatever.
I was kind of amazed that we had a good current, and the current kept pushing us off to the side where we had to look directly up into the sun. And I would do what I could to try to get with the sun over my shoulder, but I couldn't do it. And so I was shooting into the sun with my wide angle lens, and what I didn't realize is that the light was bouncing off of the front of the lens, and you could see the lettering reversed on a lot of my video.
That gives it a special effects.
Yeah, special effects. I also, I kind of enjoyed having all of the kids and the people that were there snorkeling with them. It adds a different, yeah, I guess you have to like that sort of thing. And I kind of do. I enjoyed that.
You enjoy seeing everybody else having such a great time.
Yeah. And somewhere around that time period, we were at the Gato Island.
Yes. Yeah, we did a morning dive called Gato Island, and it was really cool because as the morning progressed, you know, as we get up, we do our continental breakfast, there's this little blue house there that somebody's building, and that's the only thing on this island. And we do our dive right there in front of the house. And then we come up, and I think I was talking to Jay, and I told Jay, you see that little concaved area in that island over there? I said, I'm the kind of guy that wants to take a kayak over there and see what's over there. And I'll be darned, the next dive briefing, they had a picture of a cave, and they're like, we're going right over there to where I wanted to go in the first place, and we're going to go down about 40 feet. And we're going to dive all the way through Gato Island. And from what I understand, that's the only cave dive all the way through an island in the Philippines. And we get halfway through the cave, and there's this huge opening, the sun shining through the cave, and that's where I found a little black nudibranch, one of my first nudibranchs. And everybody's meandering around taking pictures and video, and then we go back out the other end of the cave, and it's
sunlight. Yeah, sunlight was on that side of the island.
Yes, and it was totally different from this side. It was a really good dive. That was a bucket trip.
Got onto the sandy areas, and then there were a few turtles.
Yes,
There were green turtles.
There were a lot of turtles, and they just, it's really neat because they're not afraid of you. You know, they know that nobody's going to bother them, just like the lionfish don't run from you there. And literally, when you and I were down in front of the one, and you didn't even have to like follow them. They would just like get down there, and he's scooping the sand, and he's eating, and we're right there in front of him, and he could care less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're so beautiful too.
Absolutely.
I think those green turtles are absolutely the prettiest thing in the ocean about.
Yes, and you come across them sleeping, and they just lay there nice and laid back, and a lot of the sea crates. There were a lot of sea crates, and we got to one, and he was going up the rope from the bottom. There was a buoy rope, and he's following that buoy rope up, and so I start following him up because they run when you see them, and I was just like, man, I finally gonna get some decent footage of one. And I follow him up, and then I feel my head breach the water, and I was like, oops. And we were only in about 20 feet of water, and he grabbed a gulp of air, and he turned around, so I followed him right back down the road.
So he did a 15-second safety stop.
Yeah, I did a 15-second safety stop. It was a reminder to pay attention whenever you find something exciting to video.
We've all done it.
Yeah, we were all guilty of it.
Well, I wanted to get a picture of a pygmy. We're down there, and the dive master pointed out a sea fan with one on it, and I spent about like a half an hour taking pictures, and I enjoyed it. It was super fun. I got back up to the boat, and I was feeling pretty proud, you know, because it was my pygmy seahorse picture. And the dive master goes, yeah, saw you down there taking pictures for a long time. I'm like, yeah, I think I got some good ones. He said, there were 2 others on that sea fan. I don't know why you didn't spend some time on the bigger ones. It would have been easier.
One of the things that I really liked was that coral grouper with the shrimp on top.
Oh, yeah.
That was. How did you find that guy?
Oh, well, he was in a hole originally. And I said, well, I got a lot of that fish. I'll take 1 or 2. And I was getting ready to move on, and he opened his mouth like a big yawn. So I took a couple more, and then I looked closely, and the little shrimp was in his mouth. So I took some of the shrimp in his mouth, and again, I was ready to leave, and he came out of the hole, and I looked, and that shrimp was sitting right on top of his head.
And the morays, you have, I call them reticulated morays, but I think that there's something else.
I spotted him, and I was like, ooh, I don't have one of those yet. And there's just one. So I went back, take a couple pictures, and again, the group's drifting away. I was like, well, I better move on. But then the second one popped out, and I was like, even if I get lost, I'm staying here.
Yeah. How'd you like the thresher sharks?
That was pretty good, but the most memorable was the tiger shark. It was dusk and cloudy, and it was pretty dark down there. And I was taking pictures of that green nudibranch with the bright green spots. And I saw a shadow at the corner of my eye, and I was like, ooh, boy, that's big. And I was like, ooh, that's not a diver. And it has stripes. And it just kept circling and getting closer and closer. And so everybody just started eventually going up to the boat. And Martin was behind me, and I climbed in. And then just as Martin got into the boat, the shark came right up to the ladder.